a plainer, saner when you remember all the danger we came from. Burning like embers, falling tender, longing for the days of no surrender years ago. And will you know? So smoke 'em if you got 'em, 'cause it's going down. All I ever wanted was you. I'll never get to heaven 'cause I don't know how. Let's raise our glass up to all the things I've lost on you. Oh, tell me I've been lost on you. Oh, just as you could cut me loose. Oh, everything I've lost on you is I lost on you. Is I lost on you. Baby, is I lost on you. Is I lost on you.
Hello, boys. How are you? What's
That was
happening?
beautiful. Who was
Yeah.
that?
That is a trans man named LP.
Beautiful.
Wow.
It was amazing.
The title
Absolutely
of the song
gorgeous.
is "Lost on You," and he has
Profound.
an incredible voice. Incredible.
Amazing voice. Amazing.
Yeah, so welcome to Rad Pod and Not So Chill. I'm Heidi Kuda. I'm here with my friends Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity. And Hi-Fi has not been feeling well, and he still managed to pull off that beautiful intro, beautiful opener, cut the Zarina Zabriskie EP that we're going to be talking about. And so I'm very grateful and happy to see you gentlemen, even under these circumstances. So I'm going to adjust my seat so I'm as high as you guys are. Then
Yeah, good luck with that, lady.
Did I say high? I meant tall. Anyway, so grateful to be here. Happy to see you. I know we're going to be talking about a lot of things, but I just wanted to give a shout out to all of the incredible people who have been supporting Los Angeles right now. I've stopped counting the number of people I know who lost their homes. I don't want to look at the number. I happen to live in an area where there was unbelievable devastation, and I also happen to have worked in an area where there was unbelievable devastation. And it is just, I just want to say thanks, because the outpouring of love and support, patience, and money has been just phenomenal. And unfortunately, we are a show. We've always been an investigative show about disinformation. And unfortunately, the tragedy continues to be weaponized by the mobsters who are seizing control of our country. And there's just no word beyond evil, I think, that I can think of, that they are taking this opportunity to try to, harm democratic leaders for their political gain. And it's absolutely disgusting. So I know we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff, but Jim, why don't you jump in? You wrote something really amazing. I saw it circulating on the interwebs. Why don't we talk a little bit about your latest Mind War Substack article?
Which the Biden one?
Yeah.
Yeah. That seems to have struck a chord, with people. I wrote a piece that, it wrote itself. It's like 40 minutes and it was, out, and then I had to link it and stuff. But basically the only conclusion that I can come to at this point is that Biden has been basically in this sort of establishment alternate reality that I called it for basically his entire term. What was remarkable and in some ways devastating to me was that the second half of his last speech
Yeah.
of his entire presidency, he finally said oligarchy, dark money, social media, and there was another one I can't remember.
Tech industrial complex.
What that too, but you know, the whole, you know, idea of these fucking billionaires coming in here and taking over, and Biden, for the very first time at the very end of his speech, says, you know, hey guys, by the way, you know, I'm sorry about that whole oligarchy thing you're going to have to deal with, and bounced out. Right. And you know, and I think it's remarkable that, you know, he knows, right? He clearly knows, or either that, or he just learned, right? Neither of those are good. Either he knew this all along and he just never said these words.
Yeah.
Because he was the entire time performing optics, right? You know, or he's just sort of catching on right now. And honestly, neither of those are good or acceptable.
No.
You know, there's one quote in here that really bothered me. He said, you know, about his term, we braved through it. We emerged stronger, more prosperous, and more secure. Well, yeah, some of us did brave through it. I mean, it was a fucking bitch if you tried to stand up or warn about this, right? But the braving through is about to happen. Yeah. We have not braved through anything.
No.
And it to come at you know, the American people, like, you know, I did all this great stuff, and be on guard against these existential threats that metastasized and reared their head on his watch.
Yeah.
And you can't, you know, there is no way to get yourself out of that hole. And the way you deal with it is look people in the eye and tell them what really happened. Not this last minute vague, like, well, shit. I guess the entire function and structure of our entire society changed from this form of government to this form on my watch.
Yeah.
Sorry. Bye. I found the whole thing. I actually, to be honest, I got triggered before the speech because he sent out a letter. And again, like, I'm not bashing on Biden.
No.
I worked my ass off for Joe Biden.
Yeah, me too.
I respect the shit out of Joe Biden's 50 years of service. But he made a choice, a deadly, devastating choice, which is that he was going to prioritize norms and institutions and optics over his oath to protect and defend the Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic, and to protect the American people. Because what is about to happen is not him protecting the American people. And what he did yesterday by saying, see ya, sorry, I guess that's just your problem now, is not an acceptable answer.
It's and I was just going to say, I have no other word other than devastating. We laid out and we mapped out all the things that he could do even after the election, which would have been meaningful. You wrote a speech that he would never say, that had many things that could be done. And I've been thinking a lot about the legacy of RadPod, because we hopefully, if we survive the coming purge of the internet, a future generation will see the work that we've been doing. And for, more than 3 years, we've been warning and mapping out what could be done. We have been talking to global experts about disinformation. Jim has been always telling people, and we've been always telling people, no rear areas, everyone's being affected. And, you know, um, I'm very grateful that we have taken a global view and that we are able to bring in experts from around the world, because again, America is not unique. And what we are going through, where we are sadly on our own, is that we're not resisting in any meaningful way. And you will see that in this particular live stream, where we show highlights of our interview with Zarina Zabriskie. Zarina, of course, is a war correspondent. She's an American citizen who was born in St. Petersburg and had to study combat propaganda. So she always had like just a leg up on all this stuff. Like, she's been reporting about information war for a decade. She's been reporting from Ukraine for the last couple of years, where she, as a child, spent many summers in Odessa. So it's very personal for her. But she went to Georgia this week, reported live from Georgia. And what she brought us and shared with us and all of her readers and viewers was the vitality and the vibrancy of young people who have everything to gain by not allowing Russia to take over their country. They have everything to gain by moving toward the West and the EU and Western values. And I'm just like, why, why do we instead, because of the mind war, our young people were protesting against our own freedoms? They may not have known it, but that's what they've been doing. They sabotage their own democracy. Not all of them, of course. I don't want to, just leave a blanket statement out like that. But there was a terrible situation in America that escalated into what is essentially a mafia state, not unique, as Zarina will explain in the episode. There's oligarchs who run these countries, and they have other oligarchs underneath them, and they're assigned to different countries: Moldova, Georgia, America, Ukraine, you know, uh, throughout area where there's a democracy that they can destroy for their own power and their own greed. And I got a lot of messages this morning, Jim and High Five, from people saying, thanks for your work, you guys. Biden finally said oligarchy. That speech you wrote and that letter you wrote must have finally hit his desk. And it just, like, my heart sunk, because it's like,
Yeah, it had nothing to do with our letter. That was him covering his ass. I'm sorry, but that's what it is.
I know.
What he was doing, by the way, was modeling Eisenhower's speech.
He left a marker.
At the end of Eisenhower's speech, he talked about the military-industrial complex,
Yeah.
which was, arguably an actual threat, right? But he wanted to warn that there was, in many ways, an enemy within, right? And Biden was trying to do that. But he wouldn't even say anybody's name. He wouldn't. He just he never talked about Russia, as far as I can remember. We simply, he abdicated that responsibility. He abdicated it to people that proved themselves for over and over again to be at the very best, completely incompetent, right? And so I just found all of it, very fucking, disturbing, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I
Deep
talk
breath,
about the
man.
opener for a second?
Yeah,
What?
please.
The opener for a second. There's a reason I chose the images I did and the video that I did. Because if you look at the history of the United States of America, it's been rich white guys fucking shit up from the jump, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's no. Hold on a second. Hold on. Let's consider this. It's wealthy white landowners who came over here to exploit natural resources, send them back to Europe, get rich, right? Then they said, we don't want to pay taxes to the king. And it was really a bunch of wealthy white guys. They just manipulated everybody else to fight their war for them. And then we got free of the king. And then they created the Constitution. And actually, their idea was good, that, we are a country of principles, of rules, of laws, and that we constantly strive to improve. We constantly upgrade our country. But if you look at the history, we've messed up Native Americans, we messed up Black folks, we messed up immigrants. Rich white men have been screwing everybody since the beginning, and they're just going to keep doing it. And I don't know, I listen to people, Biden didn't save us. Biden's a rich old white guy.
It's true. That is.
No.
What?
It's a big club, and you're not part of it, right?
I agree.
As Carlin
I'm agreeing with you.
agreeing. That being said, all right, now we're screwed, and the rich are trying to grab everything. What are you going to do about it?
Well, can I jump in there a second? Because
yeah, and I will too. Then you
there,
go.
there people are probably familiar with the poem Niemöller's First They Came For, right? First they came for the communists, and they came for the socialists. But I wasn't a socialist, so I didn't say anything, right? And go down the list all the way until you get to you. So the beginning of that poem starts on Monday. So you get to decide on Monday. You may have told yourself when you read that as a kid or heard it somewhere, right? That would never be me. I would never do that. I would never be silent in the face of evil, of people, my neighbors, being persecuted for who they are. So let me tell you, among a lot of people, but the people they are coming for first are trans people. And there are a lot of reasons for that, including the fact that the richest man in the world has a trans daughter who he rejected because he is a fucking Nazi. And he hates trans people. And so and Donald Trump doesn't give a shit, but is perfectly happy to weaponize this bigotry in order to attack this one group of people. Now, it's critical as human beings, as moral beings, that we stand up. But also, it's critical, even if you have other feelings. If you don't stand up for them, who's going to stand up for you? Right? That's the first line. That's the first line in the poem. And it's just very important to me that we understand that all of your sort of liberal, feel good, ideas over the years, this is when you get to decide who you are. This is when your morals are going to be truly tested. In that store, when that person is being attacked or lied about or persecuted because of who they are, what will you do? Those are the decisions that are going to make the difference between whether we get out of this or we don't.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I won't ever be able to use the words that Hi-Fi used about Biden because I just remember 2020 and being so relieved to have a decent person going into that Oval Office to mop shit up. But all along the way, we begged him to fight back against the information war, to let people know that this war was happening so they would have tools and government support. And ultimately, as you said, Jim, after the election, we feel abandoned. Those of us who have been doing this work at great peril, under great stress, under constant attack, definitely were abandoned on the battlefield. And yeah, everything you just said, so real. And again, if Americans could stop, I don't know if it's just the television that they're watching or that freaking navel gazing. Maybe they're tired of the political world, which is not good because that then allows the criminals to win by default. But the bottom line is that if you just look around the world, just, pull out a map. We're going to show you what's happening in Georgia in the first clip, I hope, tonight. You need to know what's happening in Romania. Like, just look around the world. And my God, the Ukrainians, oh my God, actually going head to head with the Russian war machine, which really is great at KGB mindfuckery more than anything. And that we just rolled. And again, every country has their Elon Musk, and we should not be so dazzled. Those are criminals doing criminal things, criming in plain sight. So for frickin' years, and maybe now is a good time to see the first clip from. Yes, go ahead, Jim.
I was gonna bring up one other thing because I think it's relevant here. A timing thing. We had Craig Unger on the show in October when he released his book.
Yeah.
And his book was about the Iranian hostage crisis and how actual treason was committed by the Reagan campaign team, including the future CIA director, William Casey, Knight of Malta, by the way. And so Craig, who we've had on the show several times, and his friend, and is also a best-selling, world-renowned author, is like, yeah, they not only did they do that, it was instrumental to stealing the election.
Yeah.
And remember, we got 8 fucking years of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Because of that, right? And we did not find out about it until 44 years later, right? Now, yesterday, you may realize that there was a ceasefire and a hostage release announced by Biden and Netanyahu, until all of a sudden today, there wasn't anymore, right? Ooh, sorry, Hamas is objecting, and Hamas is like, what? No, we're good, let's go. It was a delay tactic, right?
Yeah.
A delay tactic. Why? Well, because in 1980, the way that they stole the election was, affecting the hostage crisis, not letting the hostages go for political purposes. And what do we have here today? The same goddamn thing, but like wide out in the open, right? Like it's like, no, you could practically hear him stomping his feet in Mar-a-Lago when he saw that there was, some credit being given to Biden for this thing. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important thing that we recognize, to what Heidi was saying before. This is a pattern. Yeah. And like a battered spouse who keeps coming back, or someone with Stockholm syndrome who cannot help but allow themselves to be abused over and over again. That the hostages in this scenario are us. Mm-hmm. There's 350 million hostages going to be in the United States on Monday. And, you know, by the way, that's not a terribly stable situation for the hostage keepers either. So, you know, anyway.
Netanyahu has flip-flopped again as of 10 o'clock this evening, Eastern, apparently. Now he's saying, no, we're going to do it. So,
Well,
who
so
knows,
look at
man?
the same thing.
Yeah, all the magas in my reply, all the magas in my replies are like, "Oh yeah, that's only because Trump put pressure on."
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, here comes the first clip.
It doesn't matter. Thank you.
People united to block and basically besiege the judges who have passed recently unjust verdicts for the political prisoners and blocked them there for several hours. Throwing eggs. The special forces arrived and decided to push the protesters all the way back, creating a safe corridor for the judges to be evacuated from the restaurant.
So just to add some context there, these judges were at a corporate banquet. The demonstrators were disrupting that dinner because the judiciary is corrupt. And bottom line is that we can again draw parallels here. While they're having this, celebratory dinner, there's all these political prisoners that were, according to what Zarina's reports revealed, that they were basically, not given a fair hearing, not given a fair trial. This was from the beginning of the protests, and they are still imprisoned. So what you saw there were family members protesting against these judges, and they had to be escorted out by police, and they were pelting them with eggs. And the courage that these protesters have is incredible because, again, they're trying to defend people who were exercising their rights to protest, who are in prison now without fair hearings.
America, pay attention. Pay attention to Georgia, and pay attention to Zarina. By the way, always Zarina is one of the bravest and most erudite reporters on the planet, and it's really important. One thing I wanted to point out that I think is interesting and worth bringing up simply because of the current scenario, which is the flag of Georgia. Anybody notice that flag? That is the Jerusalem cross. The Jerusalem cross is in the National Cathedral. It is a well-known, Catholic symbol, and there's nothing inherently wrong with it. However, you may have seen pictures of Pete Hegseth who's got the Jerusalem cross on his chest. Now, you may think, okay, well, he's a Christian or whatever. But the thing is, and I had, by the way, Mike Lee, actual senator from Utah, try and troll me because I was pointing out Hegseth's tattoos, right? Oh, look, Jimmy Carter had it on his program, so that means that he's not a Nazi. Well, the problem is that he has on his bicep, or his big bulgy bicep, the words Deus Vult. Mm-hmm. Deus Vult means God wills it. Now, Deus Vult and that symbol were carried around and chanted by who? The motherfucking Crusaders. The actual ones from 1,000 years ago. And what else did they scream? Kill all Muslims, which happens to be exactly what Pete Hegseth screamed out loud to his co-workers in a strip club while he was hammered. Right? It's not a coincidence. He's a crusader. His book, anybody see his book cover? What's it called? American Crusade. Right? And people, if you're not paying attention, pay attention to this, but the very last words of his Senate confirmation testimony were, "May his will be done," which is the same thing as Deus Vult. It's just another way of saying Deus Vult. God wills it. And it was the last thing he said after, hours of bumblefucking himself through questions like, what's ASEAN? Like, you want to control 3 million people, $850 billion budget, the most sensitive fucking deadly kinetic force in human history, with nuclear subs and all the rest of it. And that little motherfucker, that little crusading, LARPing, rapey bastard is going to be in charge of our men and women in uniform. This is the most disrespectful shit I've ever heard in my life.
I'm just going to call it now. All right. The United States military will lose to China in the battle for Taiwan because of Hegseth's incompetence. You heard it here first, folks.
That's not going to be an accident if he does that. It's not, and it won't be.
No, they're putting people.
It won't be. It won't be because of his incompetence. Yeah. It will be because he's willing to do. Yeah. He's willing to execute the agreement that's been made, and I've talked about this before. They're splitting up the North American Reich, Eurasia for Putin, and China and Taiwan for Xi.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. That's why Elon Musk is now going to buy TikTok, because they're all friends now. They're all like, cool. Okay, we got the plan. Let's fucking go. Oh, by the way, if you didn't notice, as of today, Donald Trump appears to have added Cuba to the list of countries that will be in his North American Reich.
I keep on digging out old tweets of mine from 2019, which predicted all of this. It's like, they're just to destroy NATO and, give Putin tick off everything on Putin's wish list. And, here we are. And again, I am, I wish all of us ultimately are optimists in our way. And I wish we could be bringing you and delivering you the silver lining. Sometimes I find one, but right now we're going to have to go through some things, it's like just, yes, high fidelity.
The Donald Trump thing with Cuba amuses the shit out of me, because that is actually an old battle from way back in the day. And the name you need to know there is Batista, right? And Batista, well, he was a capitalist. He was also a gangster. He was corrupt. The people of Cuba suffered under him greatly. Castro was not the person that should have tapped into the popular uprising, but he did tap into the popular uprising against Batista, and that's why Cuba became a communist country. But Donald Trump threatening Cuba is an old fucking. There was a lot of organized crime from America doing business in Cuba. And this is an old fucking story that apparently the mob has decided, we're going to take Cuba back. And I'm sure they'll kick the Cubans out and turn it into luxury resorts and the standard, because that's what's going to happen. But anyway.
I mean, they're like, to be clear again, like, look on a map, right? Yeah. Greenland, Canada, Mexico, El Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama, Cuba to start. Those are the countries that the America, us in our goddamn name, have been threatened by the whatever it is elect. And and
whatever it is.
And if you don't have to be a geopolitical analyst. You just have to have a globe. And you add them up. What do you got? They're motherfuckers just trying to take over the whole thing, right? And at the same time, what's happening? The aggression over in Eastern Europe. Now, here's one thing that they're really trying to figure how to get themselves out of, and it will be instructive. Putin's country is dying, rapido, very. Like the ruble is crashing. He's literally strong arming his banks to make insane loans to himself and contractors and stuff because he's out of money. He's importing North Koreans, he's imposing all kinds of austerity and whatnot. His orcs are just getting hammered all over the field. The Ukrainians are kicking ass and just launched a giant, drone armada onto Russia. So again, there's the geopolitically this moment right now is such a precarious balance, and it's just about to fall right over a cliff. And I really honestly, I don't know what these freaks are going to do with Ukraine other than, take away all their aid.
Nothing nice. So yeah, Hi-Fi had me run a PSYOP last week where why don't you talk about it in my hot type column?
I don't remember what happened last week. The column.
We don't talk about PSYOPs in PSYOP Club.
No, I know.
Well, no, actually, I do want to kind of talk about PSYOPs because this is important. I'm not going to talk about the column. You can go read Heidi's column. You should be signed up for Byline Supplement. Toss them a couple bucks, right? That's important. Independent journalism is going to be more important than ever. Go to bettydangerous.com. Go to mind-war.com.
Thank you, Hi-Fi.
And as Tom Hartman says, that's Betty, Bette, dangerous.com. Yeah. Take it from Tom Hartman. Anyway, let's talk about PSYOPs real quick, all right? We're going to get hit with PSYOPs left and right. Your brain's going to freaking explode. Remember 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020? Remember Portland riots? Yeah. Remember the whole BLM and Tatushki crap.
Infiltration.
Look. The war is here. The war has been here. What it is it's time for people to start fighting back. So, and I don't mean get out on the streets and march, although that couldn't hurt. We'll see what happens at the beginning. But no, I'm talking about a sneakier kind of war. I'm talking about a very simple kind of war that anyone watching this program can do. I'm talking about the war of popping people's information spheres. See, Jim wrote about Biden's alternate reality and this craziness that Joe thinks he's leaving us. But he hinted at what's coming up, right? Anyway, but people have their own realities. People exist in their own information spheres. I have friends who watch Fox News, and they're always telling me, "Oh, Trump this and Elon Musk that," and I'm just like, Yeah, Donald Trump is a rapist. And it's very simple. You can pop other people's information spheres and you don't even need to be there, folks. That's the magic of stickers, right? That's the magic of pamphlets. All you got to do is make a little sticker. Nobody voted for Elon Musk. Start putting those up everywhere. Put them up inside a bathroom. Put them up on a phone pole. Put them up on the neighborhood fire hydrant, on the mailbox, on the gas pump, whatever. Let people know, pop their information spheres. Let
You
them
know,
know there's a different reality out there.
so do you,
But
I have to think that MAGA is going to have to come out of their dark fairy tales soon enough, because I don't think they voted for what's coming. I don't think that they understood what was coming. They were
No,
entertained.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you tell me, Jim. I mean, I have to
No,
believe.
that's real. That's real. Look, there are people like Steve Bannon, for example, who I fucking hate Steve Bannon more than almost anyone, except maybe Elon Musk. Right? And Steve Bannon is like, what the fuck is this trillionaire, doing on my turf? Right? So part of it is an ego thing and all of that. But there is also a genuine kind of like Bannon, at least his LARP is that he's a populist. He's a man of the people. Right? And I know it's bullshit, but whatever.
Another rich white dude. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But he's not a half trillionaire, and he gets his revenue and his juice from, Joe Blow or whatever with the red hat.
Right.
And I think him and a lot of these other guys are genuinely like, oh shit, we are going to be completely irrelevant. And why would they be afraid of that? The answer is not good. The answer is because those guys want to control the entire information sphere from beginning to end.
Word.
If you look at what they say, right? Always stop watching anything else. Only get your information here on X, right? It's all the woke media. They're full of pedophiles and shit, right? And that's their whole thing, is to get you sucked into what ends up being the information equivalent of Waco, right? Of Jonestown.
Yeah.
What in the hell made 900 people drink poison?
Yeah.
Well, it's because they were in an environment, an insulated environment for so long that the reality that they actually lived in made it make sense to them.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same mechanic that is now being overtly deployed against everybody in Elmo's, cult or anywhere close to it. And it's really frightening because all it is QAnon, but ginormous.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. On steroids. Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have clips?
Yeah, let's go back to Zarina just breaking it down.
Result of this fraud election, they now have a Kremlin puppet government, something that very soon we will have too. Only here people actually understand it. They have this one oligarch who's in charge of the whole country, basically, like a mafia state. And so these people and their parents, they're not only young people, they're very advanced in age people in this protest participate in there as well. And their other demand is to liberate, to free from detention and jail activists who were detained during the previous.
Yeah, I mean, one, protest, free speech, right? One of the most sort of remarkable, like, just feats of hypocrisy is everything they do, around free speech, right?
Yeah.
Because the minute there were any protests about George Floyd or anything like that, right? All of a sudden, it wasn't about free speech anymore. It was about BLM and Marxists and Antifers and all of this nonsense. And unfortunately, like Pete Hegseth was asked over and over again whether he agreed with Mark Esper when Esper said that shooting protesters in the leg was not an acceptable order, right? And he fucking refused.
Yeah.
He refused to answer over and over and over again. It's a hypothetical, blah, blah. We've been seeing this shit for years, but this isn't about some subtlety. This is about whether the military, the U.S. military, can shoot American citizens who are protesting in the legs because Donald Trump, who is immune from that action, whether he would do it or not. Now, a guy who's got Deus Vult on his fucking arm rapes women in hotel rooms that he gets into arguments with, and screams "kill all Muslims." We're we're in a situation again, and again, I don't mean to. The thing is, just a bit of I am less pessimistic in some ways than I was, and maybe it's only because I kind of see more clearly kind of how this is going, and it's always, the reality is never as bad as what you think it's going to be, but it's going to be fucking terrible. He's on day one, he's going to have over 100 executive orders. It's going to be despicable shit. They're going to go after people in their homes. It's going to be shock and awe, right?
Keep people in fear.
Yes. But if you know that ahead of time, right? If you know that that's their tactics, that the shock doctrine that you may have heard about is real, that the goal is to keep you scared and shocked and frightened and your amygdala turned on the whole time instead of your cortex, right? Your fear center, right? So anyway,
So you think because you're prepared mentally for it, you don't think it will be necessarily as bad, because people may end up then mobilizing to some degree or something, because just like taking it, staying afraid, that doesn't sound very American, does it? I mean,
no.
going to have to be a response.
So so just to borrow a little from from people in recovery, fucking day at a time, man.
Yeah.
And I mean that, I don't mean to sound cheesy, but short of some kind of nuclear holocaust or whatever, there's no day that they're going to be able to throw at us that we won't be able to handle, right? And so just realize that once again, like everything else, we will walk through this fucking fire day by day. The question will be, is our shield, are our shields strong enough to withstand it for this period of time, right?
So on that,
and knowledge is your shield.
Thank you, Jim. No, thank you for that. I was just thinking how important it is for our viewers to watch our interview with Marcy Shore and our interview with Nancy McLean. Marcy Shore reminds us that things can change in a moment. Dictatorships can end in just a second. One person says boo in a Tutushki mob, and the leader of Romania, who had ruled brutally for 25 years, is gone. Things can change in a moment. And Nancy McLean reminded us that they will overstep, and history shows that that people like this collapse under the weight of their own corruption. And as Jim was saying, they are already saber rattling from within as they're vying for various positions of power. So what we have to do is be ready to offer something better to those who were bamboozled. We have to unite again somehow, whatever that takes. People are going to be afraid. They're going to need people to explain to them what's happened. In the last week, I've had more conversations with people who really want to know what happened because they didn't know who and what Trump was. And it's not that they're dumb, it's that they were in their own bubbles, being not informed. And I wonder sometimes, because my background is in media, if the people who are working in the system still in corporate media and billionaire owned media, if they can't somehow find their spines and revolt from within, there's so much that can be done from within. And we'll see. A lot of people are resigning, going to Substack, doing their own thing. More of that, please. But we're going to see which lane people are in. Yes, high fidelity.
People need to make their displeasure known with these systems that are currently in place. However, as has been proven repeatedly, if people take to the streets, they will be infiltrated, violence will ensue, the cops will crack down, things will escalate, the state gains more power, right? However, the one thing the state has no recourse against is a no test. It's not a protest, it's a no test. You simply do nothing. You go to work, you get food, you go home. You maybe watch TV, maybe read some books. You don't go out. You don't go to bars. You don't go to restaurants. You cook your food. You bring the economy to a screeching halt. No test. Just do nothing. Make them look. These people are all about grabbing dollars as dollars circulate through the ecosystem. The only thing you can do is choke off their food supply, and their food supply is money. Sorry, it's the way it is.
I think saving for a rainy day these days is okay, but I don't know if anybody look, something like a general strike.
Yeah.
If these guys go off and start coming after people in our fucking neighborhoods and start really executing on some of the worst parts of this, then fucking strike. But in the meantime, for me, as far as I'm concerned, like, living your best life under the circumstances is okay, right? Don't support fascists. Don't support people who have no clue, right? Support people who give a shit, even if it's not about politics or anything.
Yeah.
Even if they just care about their own family or their own neighbors or whatever, right? So I get your point, Hi-Fi, but unless that's going to be a massive movement,
it's not enough.
like for me,
well, then make it a massive movement.
Well, okay,
exactly.
But unfortunately, in order to get a massive movement like that, we're going to have to get some very ugly actions on their part, which may or may not happen in the short term.
So just to buttress both your points, is that in Georgia yesterday there was a nationwide strike. So it was coordinated. It
worked.
Georgia shut down. Okay, so it's not going to be one guy deciding not to order Grubhub for the night. It's literally going to have to be like, I get what you were saying, but I'm just saying, like, it's going to have to be something like what they did in Georgia yesterday. And again, I'm so grateful to our friends who report on the front lines of this. This is what it's all about. So let's see, do we have one or two more clips from Zarina? Because we are at our hour now. You mentioned a Georgian oligarch who basically runs most of Georgia. And in my learning from you and others, I've learned that Moldova also had its oligarch who was doing the work of Russia. And his name happened to be Elon, also Elon Shore. In America, we have Elon Musk. I need a statement from you for our viewers about the goals of these oligarchs and how these are patterns. We have it in America. You talked about it in Georgia. I'm sure you've seen this in Ukraine. You have it in Moldova. Their job seems to be doing the work of the Kremlin in these countries to push them away from the democratic, aspirations that these young people have and toward the Russian capture.
Well, exactly, Heidi. You just basically nailed it. That's exactly what's going on. And it has been going on for a very long time. And that's what we call a mafia state. At the top of a mafia state, there's a major oligarch. And I think during our shows, I must have mentioned before the word krisha, which means roof, which is protection. That is the notion that was very popular in the 90s, where there were bandits running pretty much everything in the Soviet Union and post-Soviet space after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. And that means basically like a godfather, the closest would be. There's, this one major bandit on top, and everybody else is paying money, or not necessarily money, or they doing, you also can compare it to vassals, to medieval going.
I will point out that Elon Musk calls himself the Dog Father.
Yeah.
Those for the hold on.
Yeah.
I need to point out something that actually exists. There is a modern day example of what Trump and Elon and all these people are pulling. It's in Japan. It's called a kairetsu, and it's a KEIRETSU, kairetsu, and that is a group of companies that work together, and they have mutual shareholders, but they don't really share like management. But there are aligned interests between these businesses. Like, let's say a motorcycle maker would have a kairetsu agreement with one of their owners who also happens to own an aluminum plant, right? So
Yeah.
they get all their aluminum from this guy. It
Right.
just, yeah, it's a networked thing. You see it in the mob when the FBI sets up the pictures in the little pyramid and who's the top boss and who are the lieutenants and who are the soldiers, right? This is a thing that happens constantly, and
Yeah.
now we're going to see it in the United States government. I wonder how that's going to work.
Do you know what makes me so sad though? And Serena talked about this in that episode. Please watch the full episode. You will learn so much. Is that these other countries have like lived experience with Russia. So they were either under Soviet rule, so they know what it's like. And that is why they're fighting so hard. And as Jim said in that episode, we haven't been occupied. We gave up our democracy freely to these oligarchs. And that causes me, when I think about it, I become very sad. It's
Yeah, I mean, all of Europe, and Asia have been occupied, at some point in the not, ancient past, right? Whether it was by the Nazis or the Soviets, they've all got actual, there's pictures of their own family, on either side of a, atrocity, right? Almost by definition, and here our legend is that we just, hopped over there, won the war for everybody and hopped back and, and we just, while we took many, many losses and some of the greatest American heroes that ever were in that generation in that war, we didn't have a Holocaust here. We were the rescuers. We were the people who got people out of the Holocaust. Even though it was actually a lot of that was the Soviet Union, for example.
When we're talking about modern history, because obviously when we talk about Native American,
of course,
conversation, but we're talking World
No,
War
no,
II.
I'm talking
Yeah.
modern history.
Yes.
Yes. I mean,
Well,
the United States' history of blood and
yeah,
genocide is lengthy and real as fuck.
of
But
course.
I'm talking
Uh,
about 20th century history.
And back to that 20th century, it's like the only thing that woke up the Germans, many of whom just went about their lives during World War II, was when the Allied forces, America being among them, dropped bombs on them. And I really hope that the MAGA out there wake up before that kind of devastation. I really do. Do we have one final clip?
I think the most important part is doing what you are doing now, spreading this awareness, to have people understand and realize that occupation might not necessarily mean the tanks in the streets, or uh, something more tangible. Occupation could be very intangible, and that's what we're dealing with here. And as I like quoting Vladislav Surkov, a terrible person who's a former aide to Putin, who wrote an essay. He's a failed writer, so he likes to write a lot. And he wrote that we are not meddling with your referendums or elections, we are meddling within your brain. And this is where we need to develop the resistance. And to be honest with you, I'm not sure that we as a country, and I'm an American citizen, I identify as American, I lived most of my conscious life in America, for those of you who hear in the accent and just having this little question in their mind. And my heart is breaking for America. It's my country. I want to come back home at some point from war, and home is California. And I'm not sure that we as a nation are ready to be there, to recognize that our mindset could be changed. It's a big step. It's like being, alcoholic anonymous. The first step is awareness, is recognize it's happening.
Can I just say, like, so after this last election, everybody was fucking, oh my God, right? And there was just this gut feeling everybody had that something was terribly wrong, right? So, there was a lot of activity around, was it hacked? Was Starlink involved? And all this stuff, right? And by the way, there should have been recounts. They should have fought tooth and nail for every fucking inch, but
Yeah.
it wasn't going to change the outcome, in my view. And the reason for that is what Zarina said. They're not hacking the votes; they're hacking the voters.
Yeah.
Right? They are hacking the people, and you don't have to look far. Look for the nearest person with the red hat, or calls you a pedo, or whatever the fuck they're gonna do today, right? What happened? They hacked them. People got hacked. They are being hacked, and unfortunately, now it's like everybody's like, well, here's my plug, and they're so. Part of the reason why we get so frantic about trying to explain this stuff is because it's going to get much worse.
Yeah.
And so your job, if I may, I don't mean to be presumptuous, is number one, protect yourself, and then go in concentric circles out, right? Make sure you understand how this stuff works. Make sure you don't expose yourself to content that you cannot handle.
Yeah.
I wrote a different piece just briefly about how they weaponize child abuse.
Yes, I saw that. That was brilliant.
There's a term for it. There's a anti-Semitic term called blood libel, which is about drinking blood and eating babies. There's also an anti-Semitic myth called lust libel,
Yep.
which is about Jews being lusty, grabby, creepy men, right? And it was used extensively by the Nazis and, many other groups. And as I've said lots of times, Flynn and others, Pizzagate, QAnon, they all weaponize it. They weaponize this idea of kids being hurt because it goes right to the back of your head. It skips all this part, goes right back here to the amygdala, and hijacks all of your rational thought for good reason. Because if you see a kid being hurt, you want that fight or flight to kick in, right? That's a fucking red line, period. End of story, right? So what they do is they weaponize it. And excuse me, and Paulina Luna, who is a Russian chaos agent LARPing in Congress, put a bill out, death penalty for all pedophiles, right? The problem is that pedophiles are whoever they tell you they are, right? Whoever they're mad at. Oh, it's the Democrats, it's Hillary Clinton, it's the liberals, it's this or that. It's not the priests or the MAGA politicians or whatever, right?
Mike friends.
Anyway, so we are about to come under serious assault. If you're here with us now, you are probably pretty educated, and thank you for being here. We are all grateful. But I beg of you, take what you learn, not just here, but anywhere else, about what's happening and how information warfare works, how it poisons people's minds, and go in concentric circles around yourself. And we need to build a normie army that is going to stay, sane, because it will be those people. And this is, I'll close with this. We're going to need to bring some folks from MAGA and beyond over.
Yeah.
We don't have to agree with them on everything, but there, I promise you, I'm talking to some already who are like, what? There's like $1 trillion right there. Like, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
and then Elon Musk's Starship blew up today, by the way. So, when those kinds of things happen, it's important to take advantage.
Absolutely. Everybody who still has the ability to do so has to be truth defenders. It's so incredibly important because come Monday, we're not going to be able to believe a single thing that comes out of this government because they've proven themselves to be aligned with authoritarians, and authoritarian countries lie to their people and practice information control all the time. So we are going to have each other's backs, and we're going to have to be gentle with each other. And that means that the person you maybe haven't talked to in 6 months, maybe they need a phone call. Just ask how they're doing. Be kind. Kindness, empathy, that all matters, So that's my message. High fidelity, deep thoughts. Let's close this.
One of the facets of the global war for democracy is, in fact, the information war. And in this episode, I've given our audience 2 separate ideas. Stickers, creative mischief, break people's information spheres, get out there, spread the word. And the other one is, you're going to have to build networks. Even if there's people who voted for Trump, there's a very simple common ground. Nobody voted for Elon.